equipment, lease some loans, customers work hard assets, things like trucks, trailers.
A very competitive market.
Very much so. And we have traditionally been a traditional Salesforce operation as sales guys work for us. We want to figure out how to have a little bit more leverage and inbound as much fun.
That's interesting. So in competitive markets, the way to differentiate yourself is through expertise, right? Sharing your expertise. And that's interesting. We did a lot of work with specialty finance companies. So I definitely know you have a mountain to climb, no doubt. But also lots of opportunity to get to the top of the hill. Mr. Reynolds.
Hello, I'm Keith Reynolds, and I'm with Austin Lawrence Group. I'm a marketing advisor. I handle one of our large accounts, Kodak. I'm responsible for new business development for the agency, so y'all can stay away from me. Make myself the leper in the room. But no, I am committed to the collaborative nature of team building. I've done it in the startup space for many years. Here in Connecticut, and it's fun to see how a big company like HubSpot can dedicate resources to building communities. And just $10 per user to buy pizza. When we add that up over the dozens and dozens of user groups that they have running monthly meetings, they're making a commitment. They have 1.5 people working on the community, and it's about spreading knowledge. And so the company that gets it, and I'm really proud to be associated. Last year,
And those HubSpot guys.
and they're nice. They're great guys, good gals. It definitely emanates, and of course, we found it very supportive to create this. So thanks for coming. One of my responsibilities at HubSpot is I connect in at the corporate level for that manages the hubs, and so I have a T-shirt giveaway. So I'm thinking of a number between 1 and 100. Okay.
Oh, nice.
And there you go. Now the question is it closer than anyone else's? Yours closer than anyone else's. So I'm going to just take a minute here, go around the room, say a number.
64.
You get it.
3.
27. 42.
14.
39.
57.
46.
Good job.
46. 33. You're one off. Well,
Ah.
47.
Well done.
So that's from HubSpot. We're proudly in the community. And that's it. I like to have fun, and I hope you do too here. And
Arun,
Yes. So now my company is Access Communications. We help clients with the number of marketing communications. Doing writing, which I've been doing for Ken for 10 years now. And we do writing, technical writing as well as copywriting, video slideshows, building websites, maintaining websites, sort of AdWords. And I'm also a T-shirt aficionado.
there you go. Good shit. So I call Arun Mr. Automatic, and that's not because he always wins the shirt, but because his writing usually is very well accepted by our clients. That's as good an endorsement as I can give. Absolutely. Susan, we were talking about process, and if writing gums up the works, it's no good. So Arun is the opposite of calm. That's for sure. Why don't you guys, Alex, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm Alex Lapp. I work for Austin Lawrence. Come from a PR and social media background, so I do what I can with that as I apply it to our inbound practices. So nice to meet everyone.
Alex does a lot of content and social for our clients, so he'll run the calendars and work on their social presences. So now I'm going to turn stage and control of your night. It's like the outer limits. Bonus files. So Ellie Becker, why don't you introduce yourself, introduce our panelists, and sorry, it's roll your own. Ellie Becker, she's your host and running the show.
I am a consultant. I have a company called B.R. Becker Company. I'm also a senior consultant with Austin Lawrence Group. I spent many years in PR, and when it was obvious that the world was changing and marketing, I around 2007 started to get myself up to speed on this new social media stuff and online marketing, blogging, and so forth, and met the guys from HubSpot and started attending conferences. So I became a HubSpot partner in 2010, and I know Ken and Keith for going on 20 years. Keith built my first website for my PR. After a couple of years, I ran into these guys, and they were seeing the light of inbound marketing, and so, you know, we, as they built their firm and needed some, you know, some more team members to play with, we decided that we would work together and try to get their clients onboarded and move their business ahead. So, anyhow, let me tell you, that's enough about me. We put together tonight's program at the request of the HUG members who were here at the last meeting. In fact, we threw out a bunch of different topics, and blogging was number one. And so all of us committed to inbound marketing, of course, know that a blog is a major component of successful inbound marketing. It's a major driver of thought leadership. It drives traffic. It gets you search engine love. But even though blogs and blogging are commonplace today, and you know everybody's talking about blogs and blogging, the reality is that there are not many places or sources of information and education and experience about how to blog. What makes a blog a blog? How do you do it well? How do you integrate it with other things you're doing online to get the most impact out of that activity? Which, for people who are committed, like Marilyn is blogging twice a week. She definitely wants to get maximum leverage out of that that investment of time and brain matter. So. We're not hoping, we know that the experts we've gathered for tonight's panel will definitely help to remedy that situation for everybody in this room. So do we have both of our other panel members now?
We do. I don't know if we have them on the loud sound, but hey guys, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay,
Hi, I'm
so
here.
I hear Emma. Do we have, so I
That's
might,
fine.
okay.
Hello?
That's fine. Yeah, so
Hi, Mike.
Emma,
Hey there.
why don't you go first?
Well, you know what, I'm going to introduce these guys, okay? So Emma Snyder is a great panel member. She runs the HubSpot sales blog and has grown traffic over 500% in 1 year. And prior to joining HubSpot, she was an HR technology journalist for Tech Target. And you can connect with her on LinkedIn. In a minute, actually, is it possible to put up the slides that we have with their names?
Of course.
I do have just 2 slides tonight to make it a little easier for the audience to follow
It'll take
what
a
we're
second.
doing.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. And then sitting next to me is Dan Woog, who is founder and the sole contributor to 06880, which anyone who's in the area knows is the Westport zip code. And his blog is 06880, Where Westport Meets the World. And he's been at it for quite a while. He's a freelance writer. He's the author of 17 books, and he's the force behind 06880, which gets up to 10,000 hits a day. And given that the whole community is about 25,000, he's got at least almost half of Westport following his every word. He's an award-winning columnist with a weekly feature in the Westport News, and he also writes a monthly national column for Q Syndicate. Dan's corporate clients have included Monster.com and Talk World Discovery. And then Michael Shine is our third panel member. And I'll just tell you a quick story about Michael, which is a real inbound marketing social media story. Michael and I met through a friend who we both met on LinkedIn in music-related groups. who this guy is in the UK, and he uses rock and roll as a metaphor for business management consulting. And he knew that Michael and I lived kind of close to each other, and he introduced us, and we've been collaborating ever since for like maybe the last couple of years. Mike is CEO of Microfame Media, and and that's a digital marketing agency that helps clients establish their authority in a field through effective content. He's created or facilitated content creation for companies such as eBay, LinkedIn, and Citrix, and he's a columnist for Inc. So we're going to, now we have to switch to the next slide now that we have these guys up here. So this is what we're going to cover tonight. I'm going to be leading a conversation with our panel members, and we're going to be answering these 4 key questions: how a blog differs from other business communications, how you develop your blog's voice, how you can leverage your blog for SEO love, and probably most important for anybody who's blogging for business, how your blog can contribute to engagement and lead generation. So that said, I'm going to start with, because I want to see how this is going to work with whether people are going to be able to hear our panel members. I'm going to start with Michael and ask you, Mike, how does a blog differ from other business communications?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Can everybody hear Mike?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, Ellie, well, yeah, that's a great question. Nice to meet everyone, even though I can't see any of you. But, you know, it's funny. A blog is a wonderful tool, and people have used it to get their ideas out into the world. They've used it now to make a whole lot of money. But it's a tool. You know, I mean, the phone has obviously changed business more than anything, right? But if 100 years ago somebody said to you, wow, there's this great new thing, and you put it to your ear and you talk into it and business will just fall into your lap, you would think they were crazy. It's a function of what you say. It's a function of how you communicate that to the world. So, you know, 5-10 years ago, just having a blog and sharing your thoughts on a blog was probably enough, because that's where the influencers in the space were hanging out. That's where the people really going out and seeking knowledge. Unfortunately, everyone else today is starting a blog as well. So the blog still has a whole lot of advantages. It's recognized by Google if you're producing great content. It allows you to crack a circle of influencers that you might not have ever gotten a chance to have access to than ever before. But if you don't have the right storytelling structures, and if you can't get that blog in the hands of the kinds of people who can spread the word about it, it's really, in today, the same as Xeroxing flyers and handing them out. It takes a lot more. With all the wonderful traits that a blog has, it takes more than just having a blog now.
Mm-hmm. Great. Emma, what's your take on how blogs differ from other business communications?
So I think I can echo a lot of what Michael just said. Basically, what the main point that I wanted to express was that blogging takes a lot of effort. I think that you mentioned someone in the room was blogging 2 times a week, which is phenomenal. And in order to get a blog off the ground, it really does need that consistent love and attention, and a dedication to improving the blog and to getting your thought leadership out there and developing a consistent voice. And you know, in terms of how it differs from other business communication, I just kept coming back to the fact that it's something that's way more long term. So whether you know, just push out an email or you know, what have you, in terms of, you know, press release, anything like that, any kind of business communication, it's very much one and done. You know, you can do one marketing campaign and you know, advertise that for a little while, but it's really just one thing, where a blog needs to kind of be consistently paid attention to in order to grow.
That's great. Dan?
I'm not a business blogger per se, although I do work with businesses and contribute to some of their blogs. I am a community blogger, and I blog sometimes 5 or 6 times a day,
That's
which is
dedication.
a lot. But I think what I do is similar to what a business blogger will do, which is create a community. I think the key to blogging more than any other kind of communication that you're interested in is creating a sense among your clients, your customers, your readers, whatever you want to call them, potential customers, potential clients, that you're all in this together, that you are there with them, that they matter to you, that you care about them, and that you're all there for each other. It is a way to personalize and humanize whatever you're doing. It allows you to have a distinctive voice, a voice that might not be corporate speak, but that might be more human, more personal. It can put something out there on a blog much quicker than you can any way other than tweeting, and it's interactive. It's a two-way conversation done correctly. A blog will engage your customer base, your clients. It will allow them to have a conversation with you. It will allow you to respond quickly to their concerns or issues or questions or whatever they are. And it all comes back, I think, to what I said in the beginning. It's about community building. Done right, a blog is a really great opportunity to do that. Done wrong, if you throw the blog up there and don't tend it, I think you'll be harming yourself.
That's great. And I just want to say that I think we'll go through the questions, and then we're going to open it up to you all to ask the panel members whatever you want to ask them about blogging, of course. So the next question is, oh God, I've got to get it up here because now I can't remember. Oh, how did you find your blog's voice? And talk a little bit about why a blog has a voice. So let's just go in the same order, and we'll ask Michael to start.
So it's funny, you know. I am a writer first. Before I started an agency, I was a copywriter, and before that, I wanted to be the great American novelist. So it was always very important for me to have a voice. And what I sort of happened into with first my blog that I used to promote my copywriting services, and now what we preach to clients, is that we found that our most successful blog entries were when we used community members' voices, you know, to your point. So I was blogging away, and then one day I met a gentleman, Ruben Quinones, who's with a company called Path Interactive, and I thought what he had to say was interesting. He was an influencer, so I said, why don't I interview you for our blog? And I became the facilitator, and he said a lot of wonderful stuff, and we put it out into the world. And as a result, Ruben shared the piece all over the place. It was Ruben's voice, but he was really the first member of what I consider to be my online community. So I think it can be important to have a voice. It's certainly important in writing, but I found that a technique that's often overlooked is not relying so much on your own voice and working to integrate the voices of the people you want to have relationships with and who can sort of help further your goals. And
that's right. And having been interviewed for Michael's blog, I can say that it certainly is a great way to develop a community voice. And Emma, your thoughts on building a voice, a blog voice?
Sure. So I run the HubSpot sales blog. So the HubSpot marketing blog has a gigantic audience, and it's kind of the the flagship blog, the one that everyone knows. So when I started a year ago, the sales blog was actually relatively new. It had just started about 2 months before. So it was kind of, although we benefited from having the visibility that the HubSpot marketing blog had, we went through a lot of the challenges of a new blog, and one of them was defining a voice. So I think more importantly than anything, I think a central component of voice is consistency. So every industry, no matter what you're writing about, there are some topics that are controversial, or not. If not controversial, then there's a divide in thought. So one of the first things I did when I started was I identified the issues in my audience that we needed to take a stance on, and make that consistent throughout the blog, and every post that we were going to write about this should be in line with this stance. So that was the first thing. And then after that, it sounds really simple, but things like terms and acronyms, when you're starting off a brand new blog, and we publish a lot on the HubSpot sales blog, having consistent terms and acronyms, I think, does a lot to solidify the voice, and it definitely helps your audience kind of warm up to your blog. If you're always referring to the same things differently, I think that can kind of confuse people and make it seem like a bunch of different perspectives are kind of colliding on the blog in not a very uniform way. And then I think lastly, you want to think about the tone. So whether you're addressing your audience in, a business, very formal way, a casual way, so you want to definitely take a stance on that and then stick with it. So those are my thoughts on voice.
I'm going to ask you a little follow-up as a HubSpot person.
Sure.
Do you bring your knowledge of personas into your blog voice development?
Yes, definitely. That was one of the things when I started. Even before I got there, there were personas developed for the sales blog that we wanted to target, and I received training on that, and then it was something that I kind of took over, and over time kind of morphed, and we actually adopted a new persona in December, so then we kind of had to go back and recalibrate for that. But yes, definitely I would say personas are a big part of it.
Okay, great. Does everybody understand what we're talking about when we talk about personas? If you don't, not to single you out, just raise a hand. Okay. Just want to make sure everybody's getting the most out of this. So, Dan, what's the voice of 06880 where Westport meets the world?
My voice is very conversational. I do plenty of writing, and this is the least formal writing that I do. I can have paragraphs made up of 2 words. I can use gonna or ain't, and it's fine in a blog. It is a way to invite the reader in and to let him or her know that they are welcome in this community. I think it's important in a blog to have one main idea per post. This is not, you are not explaining everything about everything. You are not trying to solve every issue. You're not trying to address every point. One main idea, because the nature of the way a blog looks, readers read it really quickly. They're not going to scroll down forever. One main idea, you get in, you get out. If what you're writing about demands more depth, then you write more blog posts. Do not burden the reader either with too many ideas or the idea when they're looking at that screen that, oh my God, there's a lot of stuff here. I think it is important to admit that you don't know everything, that you are not the omniscient voice, that you welcome reader feedback and comments. That's part of the conversation I talked about. You can admit mistakes. You can admit missteps. You can ask users or clients or customers or readers for advice. It's all about appearing human. You can have a corporate voice that is human. You're not human in your press releases. You're not human in your printed materials. You're corporate. But when you're blogging, you can be a human being. And I think one last part of it might not be part of the voice, but it's part of two things that make blogs special. One are the ability to link, to hyperlink with anything. It can be a previous blog post. It can be another article. It can be anything. But to have readers able to go quickly to another place and then come back to you is important. And I think graphics are key. As much as we're talking about a voice, I think a blog lives or dies by its graphics. I like to think I'm a pretty good writer, but I know pretty well that as good as my writing is, if I have a really compelling graphic there, whether it's a photo or a cartoon or a flag or something like that, that draws readers in. It also makes them feel like they're part of this community because they're not just sharing words, they're sharing images.
That's great. That's actually a perfect lead-in to the next. Oh,
We're getting a question, right?
if it's yeah.
It's right on this topic.
Okay.
It just extends this.
Okay.
A bit. Is there a good length? Is it one of the mantras of good blog writing to keep it short?
Yes, mine are usually 200 to 300 words.
And
I've written blog entries that have no words, that are just an image, or that have 10 words, or that live or die by its headline, and I've gone up to about 600 or 700. But I would say 100, 200, 300.
Well, you know what?
I'm sorry.
We're going to go back to questions, but it's.
Michael was about to chime in.
What? Oh, Michael, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to give a short caveat to that, and I think that that's a good general rule. I would say, like everything else, when you're dealing with creative material, rules are made to be broken. I know a gentleman, James Heaton from Tronvig Group, a marketing company, who will blog, and his blogs are they're long. They're feature articles, and he doesn't blog that often. But because they're so compelling, he drives a whole lot of business that way. I think where people get in trouble with the long blogs is that they're long and boring. So if you're going to do something long, it better be compelling. Otherwise, definitely keep it short.
Yeah, I was going to interject a little bit there's a little bit of controversy over this whole topic of length, and one of the reasons that there's some evidence that maybe a little longer is a little better, and that has to do with the next question, which is how you can use your blog to get some SEO love. And there's some evidence that Google likes somewhat longer blog posts so that they can get a good idea that you are an authority on what you're doing, and you're more likely to come up in search results. So would you guys do the round and comment on that, on using your blog for SEO help?
Sure. I have a special love for this topic in my heart. We deal with this a lot because on one hand, what you write in the blog post is very important, using the right keywords and all of this. But I think it's really important to take a moment to dig in. Am I still coming through?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's important to dig in for a moment and understand how Google works, right? So what made Google so brilliant and why they dominate the landscape as compared to Yahoo, who was first, is that they're based on the simple premise that if high-quality sites are linking to your site, then your site deserves to be ranked higher. And how they judge high quality is, their algorithm. So what a lot of people will do is they throw up a bunch of blog posts and they keyword optimize them and they write about certain topics and they link out, and all of that is very important. But they're competing against the world at large. They're hoping that people find them. And the truth is that in every niche, in every industry, while there are so many blogs out there, our research has shown that there are actually only between 15 and 45 blogs or media properties like podcasts that have all the influence. And you can tell because it's a little in crowd. They all talk about each other. They all link to each other. So a really great SEO play is to use, this is a tactical thing, to use social media to form relationships with those influencers, find out who they are, and then invite them to contribute to your blog or maybe your podcast or whatever it is that you're using, and then find ways to get them to link to you, but in a way that's very natural and organic. Because if you try to get links from all kinds of random spots, 300 different blogs, this and that, that's a very random approach and it doesn't work. But if you can crack that little in crowd, you'll get a lot of quote-unquote link juice very, very quickly.
That's great. I'm going to interject and tell a little story that I shared with the Austin Lawrence group a couple of weeks ago. One day, I was sitting at my desk and I got a Twitter notice that said Ken Blanchard is following you, and Ken Blanchard is the very famous management guru, and he was following me. And when I looked at his Twitter feed, he had a gazillion followers, and he was following just a handful of people. So I asked the question, why is Ken Blanchard following me? And as I thought it through, I realized that through the same management consultant who I met Mike Shine through, he had introduced me to another management guy we followed each other, and it turned out that Ken Blanchard was partnering with him on some kind of a product. So Ken saw that he was following me, and he followed me. So I immediately wrote a blog post about that. What today Ken Blanchard followed me, I wonder why. And it was all about that. So when I wrote that blog post, I of course put it out on social media and did an ad reply to Ken Blanchard, who then retweeted it to all of his followers, and linked to it. So that was the highest authority inbound link I had on my blog, I think, ever. But it's amazing.
I'm a big fan of that kind of strategy. I am a huge fan because we forget that there are people on the other end of these tools. But if you think of these influencers as human beings, what you did there is exactly the way I favor approaching it. I think that's right on track.
Thanks, Michael. And Emma, tell us how your techniques for getting SEO results from blogging.
Sure. Well, I think Michael was spot on by saying that you need to leverage the influences in your community. And when I started on the sales blog, one of the big things that I did was try to get a handful of influential people with a big community to contribute to the blog, because not only does that add a stamp of credibility to the blog, it also forms a relationship. They write on your blog, then they link to their own post on your blog, hopefully from their own blog, and that's kind of how it works. But another idea that I have used as well is, in lieu of contributing, contributing can be kind of a big ask, especially if you're just starting out. I find that interviewing people, sending just a quick quote request saying, hey, I'm writing an article about this and I would love to get your thoughts, just has to be a sentence or two, nothing major. And I've gotten really good results with that. And even if you're sending it to really busy people, if it's an interesting topic, they'll say, hey, I should respond to this. I would like to respond to this. And then that's one way that I've had some influencers then will both share the post when it comes out, and then they'll link back to it from their own blogs. I actually had one person with a pretty significant community tweets for like 3 months out or something crazy to this post that I had included her quote in, and that definitely amped up our SEO search value on that specific post.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, other than that, definitely social shares aren't, they're not huge contributors to your SEO ranking, but there is some evidence that it's kind of the traffic that your blog post gets the first few days and the social shares it gets the first few days, that does kind of contribute a little bit to how Google considers it in the ranking. So that's the other thing I would say is if you publish a post, those first few days are really critical. So if you have a favor to call in from a person with a big network, that you can ask them to share it or link to it or anything like that, those first few days are really critical.
How about blogging on mapping keywords to blog posts and blogging a series on a keyword? Have you found that helps, Emma?
Yes. I do keyword research before every post that I write, pretty much. So, I assume the majority of people there use HubSpot. I use HubSpot's keyword tool to find good opportunities for keywords. But if you're not using HubSpot, I think another really helpful tool is called keyword.io. It's a free tool, and you basically just plug in a keyword, and it will give you a whole huge list of variants with estimated traffic searches per month. So that's been really helpful too when you're stuck and, for instance, you've written 3 posts with the exact same keyword and you need something just a little bit different but still has that nugget in there. I think that's a really handy tool. But yeah, I do think that researching the keyword before you even sit down to write the post makes it a lot easier to work in your flow. It's much easier than going back and trying to retrofit a keyword into a post that's already written.
Agree with that. Dan?
I have nothing to add. Both Michael and Emma have nailed it.
Okay. Great.
Thank you.
I think having 06880 in your blog name must get you some very interesting traffic.
I am way high up on Google without even trying to be.
Yeah, I know. That's a great strategy. I think that could be a strategy in self-searchable URLs or keyword-rich URLs. So. Okay, and this is the last area for panel discussion, then we're going to open it up. How can your blog contribute to engagement and lead generation? Do you think it can? And Mike?
So,
do we start? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. Blogs started out as a way for people to express themselves, right? So it was just a bunch of people hanging out and having fun in what they used to call cyberspace. And then there was this sweet spot where people figured out that they could use them to market themselves. And now it's something that everyone seems to be doing. And the spectrum of how people use these things is just all over the map. Some people, it looks like they're putting advertisements online. People write all kinds of jargon. And then I think some businesses forget that they're in business. They feel that it's a therapeutic tool, just like the early bloggers. And the fact of the matter is we're all in business to make a profit, and we all have a lot that we can do with our time. So again, I mean, if you think about how much the internet has changed the world, when we were all young, if you wanted to buy something, you relied on interruptive marketing, right? I mean, this is the central tenet of inbound marketing. You needed people to get in front of you with a sales message, whereas today, when you do a proactive search online, you don't want to be sold to. You want to, come up with those topics that answer your question. But there comes a point in the conversion process where you need to transfer, from pure information marketing to generating leads. So what are some ways you can do that? I would say email marketing is very successful. Not spam marketing, not building a undifferentiated list of people that you throw emails at. But if you've built up some followers and people are coming to your blog time and time again and they're coming around certain topics, I think it's perfectly fair to eventually, serve up a landing page or put a call to action in there that says, hey, if you're interested in learning more about this topic, we're offering a free webinar, a free ebook, a free offer of some kind. And when people sign up to that, they're essentially raising their hand and saying, I want to learn more. I want more in-depth information. And, HubSpot has obviously been the masters at tracking that journey from being an interested person all the way down through becoming a lead. But yeah, I think if you're doing it for a business purpose, that's essential.
Emma?
So definitely I would say that I would even go as far as to say every blog post you publish needs to have some kind of CTA on it, because otherwise there's no way for people to convert even if they wanted to, and it's something that is part of the inbound methodology. So I'm guessing it's probably not new, but it does surprise me the amount of blogs I see that don't have anything on it, not subscribe to this blog, not check out this ebook, not attend this webinar. There's just nothing. So I'm sitting there like, well, I like this post. Well, what do I do from here? And it's the old saying that in marketing there should be no dead ends. So I really think it's important to not only put an offer on a CTA with an associated offer for every post, but also make sure that offer is well aligned to the post topic as close as you can get it, because then it's not even so much, oh, I have to give you my email for this thing. It's kind of a nice jump. So if you're reading a post about, I don't know, great subject lines, and then you see an offer for an ebook that says, oh, here's a kit on how to write the perfect email. It's so natural for the person to say, oh, I really like this post and I would love that kit. It makes a lot of sense. So I really think that I would just urge people to put a CTA in every post. Otherwise, you're losing people that might convert. They just have nowhere to go.
That's great. Calls to action are a big, important part of inbound, for sure. Dan, in addition to whatever you might be about to say, if you would comment a little bit on using comments for engagement, because it sounds like, well, I think you do a really great job of that, and talk about why that's important.
Well, I would just add to what Emma was saying that I would caution against the CTA being in your face. I think people read blogs for many reasons, and being marketed to is not the main one. So, you can do your ask, you can call for action, but subtle is fine. That would be my caveat. In terms of comments, I make it very easy for people to comment. I myself do not pre-approve comments, although there's a requirement that everyone use their full real name with a verifiable address. Monitoring comments or pre-approving them obviously takes a ton of time and slows down the process. On the other hand, if it's your brand, your company, your whatever, you might do that. It also takes someone to do it. It takes a human being to do it. But having those comments and having your readers feel that they have a human connection to you is really important. So that means you really have to reply to some of the comments. You have to keep a conversation going. Even if it's a quick, thanks, we're glad we could help, great idea, we'll get our marketing guru on that tomorrow. If your readers see that you are engaging with them, and not necessarily, you don't have to do it for everyone, that would be ridiculous and time intensive and you wouldn't do anything else. But if you're going to have comments, to be able to respond to those comments and get a conversation going, I think is really, really important. And you do it in the same voice that your blog is. You continue that persona, that, whatever that type of voice you have, you continue it in the comments section.
Yeah, I think that a call to action on a blog can be as simple as just asking a question and asking people to answer what their experience has been and to comment or to subscribe, and and peppered and salted with other more, more powerful or upfront asks. But
You can also have surveys or polls.
that's a great idea.
A question that's big in your industry. You can insert these polls really, really easily. You can make sure that people don't answer more than once. They can click on to see the results. And that's just one more way of engaging them. And it gets you some market research as well.
Well, I think that the panel has just laid down a beautiful foundation, and we have time. We have about 15, 20 minutes to get now a conversation. If this were our blog, we're now into the comments, and and so we encourage you, especially you bloggers, or those of you who have thought about it, or who are blogging and want to beef up their game, to ask away, because the panel is here to answer your questions.
I told Em and Michael we turn the camera on the audience, and then maybe they
great.
join us via video if they wanted to.
We can do that, but I did not dress up for the occasion.
You're forgiven.
All right,
I'm
thank
so
you.
glad you're
Oh, look at that. Wow, that's a strange shot. Hold on. There we go.
All right, that's great.
There we go. You're actually, we can't even see. You're in the small box.
Oh, there I am. Okay. Hi, everybody.
What box am I? All right, how's that?
I need to change it to the people that are talking, Sean, but go ahead. I'll take a second.
Okay, so Marilyn Miller.
Guidelines is to links, both links. I try to put a couple links, use HubSpot for blogging, so I can easily find past articles and link to them. But I'm not, some guidance as to how many links, either inside links, your own
internal
links, or external links, would be appropriate. I always get this feeling I don't want to put people away from my blog.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, blogging about debt collection, I'm kind of walking that line anyway, so I'm trying to keep people engaged, but I want to be informational on a link, so I want to get the bang from linking to something, yet I don't want to take them away, so some guidelines would be great.
Yeah, does anybody, in case you guys couldn't hear the question, how many both internal and external links do you think are appropriate in a blog post? Are there too many? What is there some number that is ideal?
Yeah, I mean the way I see it is, I don't know that that's the way to frame the question. So I think when you start thinking in terms of what number of links should I do, first, you're thinking differently than how Google thinks, and you're thinking differently a little bit from how your readers think. I think the better way to approach it is, what should I link to ensure that my readers have a good source for what I'm quoting? Because Google is getting more sophisticated every day, and also that's, even if you were a journalist, that would be the way to do it. Ellie mentioned I write a column for Inc., and they put a lot of emphasis on not how many links we use, but on linking to those things, to those claims we make, or sources that we cite, or other articles or concepts that we talk about. And the side benefit is that those Inc. articles rank very highly. So that would be my strategy versus counting links.
Emma, any thoughts on that topic?
Yeah, so I completely agree. I think that it's not so much worrying about what makes Google angry or happy. It's more for your readers. So how are they? What links are going to help them understand this? You know, do they need a link to something, to a different resource? You know, is there an area that you don't have time to explain in this blog post, or you don't have the inclination? And do you feel like you want to give them that option to, okay, learn more, you know, click here. Obviously, attributing any statistics or data that you include in a post with a link just boosts your credibility. I mean, even if nobody clicks it, it's kind of even having that link there shows that if they did want to research more, they can. But I mean, I really think the simple answer is just, first of all, for your readers to get them as much information as possible, but second of all, just visually. I mean, if you look at something and you're like, oh my God, there's so many links in here, you know, that's probably what your readers are thinking too. So I really don't know if there's a high or low threshold for links. Just it's kind of a combination between readers understanding and then just what, you know, visually looks acceptable.
I agree.
Dan, are you
I agree.
in agreement?
Yep.
Okay.
Glad I go third all the time.
How about you'll go first next? Okay. Cam?
So I had a question for Dan, actually. You kind of spoke about how it's important to be succinct and to the point with one idea with different blogs. But a way to kind of retain somebody's attention is to use an image with it. Is there a point where you think that using too much imagery can oversaturate what the actual article is? Because I know attention is kind of hard to grab, especially with my generation, where it is, you know, you get maybe a few minutes of us and then we're on something.
Well, you've answered your own question, I think. You know, you guys are visual, right? A visual will grab you, but you're not going to spend all this time looking at it. You'll see what's attached to the visual. And if the writing is good enough, you'll keep going. If it's not, you won't. So, and it also depends. I mean, if you're doing debt collection, you know, I don't know how many great visuals you can get out of that. You know, I'm sure you can get a few. If you're doing something on, you know, if you're marketing to, you know, something about spring break, you know, my God, you got enough, you know, great photos. So I don't think there's any one answer.
I would actually like to chime in and add to that because I think that's a great point. So, you know, all of these rules are guidelines. So sometimes someone will hear, oh, you need to use visuals in blogs. So regardless of what the industry is, they'll put stock photos of people in business suits running on tracks, you know, in between every paragraph. And that's not what visual means. It's about visuals that enhance the post. So if you're with an interior design firm, you know, we have a client that's an interior design firm, and we use a lot of visuals. But again, yeah, for debt collection, unless there's a unique spin, unless you're showcasing stories of people who have consolidated their debts in an effective manner, and you're showing their pictures, these rules are guidelines. I just think that's so important to keep in mind.
I have something to add too. I was going to say, so using the example of debt collection, you know, there's not a ton of great visuals just floating around out there, you know, about debt collection, but I'm willing to bet there is some interesting data. And there are a ton of free or cheap tools out there now that people who don't have a great design background or, you know, aren't PowerPoint or Illustrator whizzes can kind of whip up your own visualizations relatively quickly. So I've used Infogram before, and I know there's just a ton of others if you just want to Google it. And it's really just as simple as, you know, choosing what kind of visualization you want, popping in some data, and then it spits you out a JPEG that now adds a visual to your blog that you didn't have before, and plus it's original.
That's a great point. That's a really good point.
And you know what? I'll just chime in one little thing. What do you see when you bring up a Google search page? Not only links to written matter, but there are always images, right? And sometimes if you have to make sure to do alt tags to tell Google what that picture is about. but if it's a response to a search, to a Google search, it'll come up in the images, and a lot of times people are going to be more likely to click on a really fabulous image than they will to click on a story title.
Yeah, tag your images well.
Yeah, you have to.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Susan.
Well, there's something that I've been doing for decades in pre-web. When I write, I believe writing is visual. I believe in short paragraphs. I believe in subheads, so that people can scan.
Yep.
Captions, of course. Those are tools because we see before we read, and it's really today you can get a high percentage of the information just through that scan.
Yep, that's a fabulous point, and it's really important.
Yeah.
Keith, I think Ken had a question too before.
Sorry, Nancy, I was just going to add to that. Another thing is, if in your case with debt collection, there's probably some key themes that you are repeating over and over to clients. There may be a process that you refer to. And so if in your blogging you think of the audience as sort of transient and repetition is the key to all understanding, if you take those two things together, using the same image over and over and over to really drive home the key points that you have, like debt collection is a process, there's 4 steps, or something like that. Use it 7 times a year to really drive home that point, because when you get that person on the phone, in your case you're doing this to drive inbound leads, you're going to take them back to that process anyways. You might as well educate them with your blog.
You know what, one other thing you can do is to use an image to brand a feature, a repetitive feature on your blog. Like I had every Tuesday, which also makes it easier to blog. I used to do analyses of just random Twitter feeds and Twitter posts to find the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I branded it Tuesday tweets and found a really cute graphic of a little Twitter bird. I don't know, in Tuesday. I don't know how I did it, but that's another way you can use imagery. But you know, I will just say, when we use imagery, we also don't want to run afoul of copyright laws. So when you're pulling images, you need to make sure that they are free to use.
Yeah, and I would say to the point of, you know, whoever was talking about writing visually, I think, you know, that's a great point. And beyond that, I think it's very important to look beyond the online world for inspiration on how to write persuasive, you know, engaging material. You know, there are copywriting books out there where you're not going to be writing direct sales copy and that sort of thing, but these timeless principles of getting people to scan, you know, structuring a piece, journalism books, look at Cosmo magazine. No one's better at headlines than them, right? Or Men's Health. So I think if you cross-pollinate what you're doing by looking at people in other fields who are doing it the right way. You know, the human brain is thousands of years old. It's millions of years old. It's much older than the internet. So if you can steal from some people who aren't necessarily looking at the same blogs you are, that can be very helpful as well. And that goes for design. That goes for imagery.
Yes.
I love the idea of using interviews in a blog, and I wonder just how broad you think it might be. The panelists think you might be able to do that. Could you use somebody, if you're writing about debt collection, should you look for a debt collection expert or a customer of your company who had a good experience, or if you're writing about for a tech company, should you interview one of the clients who had a successful marketing campaign, etc.?
I would say all. The key to, you want people when they read your blog to not know what's next. You want them to keep coming back because there's the element of surprise. You know, what's she writing about today? And if you keep going to the same well, you're going to bore your readers. If they don't know who is going to be the next interview, you know, the biggest name in the industry or some, you know, little schlump they've never heard of, you know, somebody with this point of view, somebody with that point of view, the more you can keep the element of surprise, and the better. And the way to do that is by variety.
Yeah, I would also add that, and that's a great point. I would also add that on top of that, you should start by identifying your business goal. And this is how we built our business, and we've subsequently done a lot of this for our clients who sell more expensive, big ticket products or services. I think you want to start by saying to yourself, okay, what do my readers want to hear about? Because that's the most important thing. Who do they want to hear from? But at the same time, look at the other side of the keyboard and say, who do I want to meet? Because, you know, we all go out there and we do networking, right? We go out to networking events and cocktail hours and, you know, events like this one, and that's all very valuable. But somehow we feel that when you get online, that stops. And I would argue that the internet gives you access to meet the kinds of people who you would never have access to in quote-unquote real life. So if you find someone on Twitter, Ken Blanchard, if you connect with him and you say to him, hey, you know, I've got this awesome, not awesome, but I've got this blog that's about this, that, and the other, a compelling idea. We think you'd make an awesome guest. Would you like to be on it? He might say to himself, wow, yeah, that's very cool. I'm honored, and also that's a chance for me to get some exposure. So you have that interview with him, and then you say, hey, you know, that went so well. That was fantastic. Next time you're in New York, let's meet for a bite. And then you start doing the same kinds of activities that you would do in a normal networking environment. Being selfless with that person, doing things for them from a genuine place. But I would say that an added layer to trying to get great guests for that your readers and fans want to listen to is using it as a business development tool, using it as a tool to meet the right people.
I'm gonna just ask Brian Bish, who's an audience member, has, I think, had a lot of success with that approach. Do you want to comment about any experiences?
As I was growing my business, I most of my clients are in Fairfield County, but as I started growing and meeting clients outside of the area, I started building my audience by thinking not, you know, who do I want to know? I mean, who do I want to know me, but who do I want to know?
Right.
And one of the people I reached out to was Robert Caruso, who's the CEO and founder of Bundle Post. And I connected with him. I started retweeting him, replying to his messages on Twitter. And after a few weeks, he sent me a message and said, we should talk on the phone. I said, yes, we should. And now we still are in contact. We talk on the phone, brainstorm things, and share content. It all started from just reaching out on Twitter and thinking, who is going to be able to help me grow my business? I want to not just grow my business, but I want to know who they are and make that connection.
Yeah, and network's very important. I mean, this is a very underutilized and really effective approach, in my experience.
Yeah. You can take it, you can be pretty direct. So for about 4 years, we had an office in London, and we had a specialty in transatlantic marketing, getting UK firms here, helping grow US firms, projecting them to the UK and Europe. And we would actually just write stories about transatlantic operators of different kinds of business, whether it was the BBC or airlines. We ended up with quite a few meetings where we would write a blog about, like, MaxJet, was an airline that used to fly between New York and London. And we actually got to pitch EOS Airlines on the back of having covered the nylon air market.
That's great. That's a great idea. That's very cool.
So actually, talking in the space and, you know, having an opinion about the space is something you can do.
Just to echo the experience, one of the highlights of my career was with a startup, and we found it hard to raise money in 2007, 2008, and so in 2009, 2010, we were really in startup mode with no marketing budget, and I started a blog to teach myself WordPress, and I started researching federal information that was posted, but it was so far down in the federal government's websites, and I started picking out a very specific niche around radiological materials that were left on the roadside or lost in a hospital, and it was literally dozens a month that I was highlighting, and I started blogging about it and posting news articles as well, sort of like a Huffington Post. And all of a sudden I got asked out of the blue, would I testify to Congress? And that, yeah, it's in the congressional record. And I had become an expert through research, and I was amplifying things that were out there in the marketplace. But when I went down to the congressional testimony, I ended up meeting people who invited myself and my company to several high-level meetings in the federal government that no way would I ever have been able to get those meetings. And so the lesson for me is you have to write with intent. You have to be pure. Your motives have to be clear. Like you said earlier, you can make your pitch, but you have to be writing with the audience in mind, not for yourself.
Yeah, and I think there's another. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I'm done.
I'm sorry about that. It's hard when I can't see you. I think that's a great point, and I think there's another lesson in there too. A lot of companies and people spend a whole lot of time and energy trying to build massive audiences, and I think that that's fantastic. It's certainly a big thing if you're trying to monetize your blog, right? Drive ad revenue. It's also big if you're selling a consumer product that costs $99. But I think for certain types of organizations, it's more important to build an audience that's sizable enough to be attractive, so that when someone comes on is interviewed on your blog, it's an attractive proposition for them. But, I think for a lot of businesses, it's the people you're meeting. Some businesses only need 3 sales a year, 4 sales a year, 10 sales a year. So why are you building an audience of 1 million people who can never buy from you, right? So it's just something to think about.
Peter Flurl.
I promise to keep it short, even though I'm talking about my daughter. She, not blog, but podcasts. She and a co-writer have done 3 seasons of TV Guide letter theater, where they read real letters TV Guide and then have actors and actresses act it out. The first year, they, like the rest of the white boy, went to TV Guide award night and watched everybody going in. The second year, they were on the red carpet at TV Guide award night. The third year, my daughter's email said, "Dad, it's really great that I've learned to say, and the winner is." She was a presenter.
Oh my God.
So and one of the things that kicked them off the first year was Comedy or Die picked up their podcasts, and it went large.
Wow. Well, that actually brings up a great point, that your blog does not necessarily have to be the written word. There are other media that you can use, like video blogs, whatever. I can never say that, blog. And a lot of people have been very successful with podcasts and other forms of blog-like communications. Does anybody want to talk about other? We have well, we really don't have a lot of time if we're going to stick to our schedule. We don't have any time. We've sort of eaten up our wonderful period of this. Time flies when you're learning great stuff. And so I'm going to thank Emma and Michael and Dan for joining us and sharing their experience and their great information. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. It was a whole lot of fun.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it was a great time.
You're free to go.
For our next talk.
We need to pick a date and a topic. That's usually sort of our conclusion.
Yeah, this is our housekeeping period now.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you for doing this. Really.